And tonight on Live Talk, we are going to talk about the vending crisis in Harare in particular and other cities and towns in general.
To join our discussion, phone us directly at this number 001-202-619-2077 and we'll call you back.
And as usual, Live Talk goes out to Zimbabwe on our 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930, 5940 and 15460 kilohertz shortwave Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m.
On the internet, you can find us at www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voashona.com, and www.voindebele.com.
Once again, thanks for joining us, and you are listening to Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Live Talk, we are going to talk about the vending crisis in the country.
Harare has become the first council in Zimbabwe to set up a standing committee to deal with solely with issues of the ever-increasing street vendors. City Principal Communications Officer Michael Chidema says the committee, chaired by Councillor Charity Bango, will deal with issues relating to council on a daily basis and report to full council monthly or as and when necessary.
But of course, an update we are receiving from council is that one Janjasi Ekwadzana councillor who actually chair the vending committee, just as an update. And of course, Zimbabwe, after years of an economic collapse, is now faced with a serious problem of hordes of struggling vendors, estimated at 5.7 million, who have invaded every little space in cities and towns to sell their wares. And for many Zimbabweans, Zimbabwe, or the country rather, is now a vending nation. Government, fearing social unrest, has not moved in to address the vending crisis. Gibbs,
what do you think about this issue? If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number 001-202-619-2077 and we'll call you back. That number again, 001-202-619-2077. For those that are using WhatsApp, our number is 1-202-465-0318.
onguka hama wadiwa nasi tinoda kuti tinge tichitarisa nenyaya yevanhu vari kutengesa zvinhu mumigwagwa muguta reHarare nemamwewo maguta emunyika. Vamwe vari kuti izvi zvinhu zvakanaka nekuti zviri kuita kuti vanhu vakwanise kunge vachiwana mabasa, nekudaro hapana chakaipa, uyewo makambani mazhinji ari kuramba achivharwa, vanhu havasina kwekuenda, pane kuti vanhu vabe vari kutengesawo zvinhu zvavo mumigwagwa. Asi vamwe vane zvitoro vari kuti aiwa, isi tiri kubhadharawo mitero, asi chiri kunetsa ndechekuti nyangwe pamberi pemavharanda, nyangwe pamukova panenge paine vanhu vari kutengesa zvinhu ivava vakuita kuti tisawane mari. Toda kunzwa kubva kwamuri kuti muri kuona sei nyaya yekutengeswa kwezvinhu mumigwagwa. Gibbs,
yebo kambe zulu kandaba lingatshona njani ngapha ke thina lo blessing hayi siyaqhubaqhuba nje kancane. Udaba lamhla sixoxa ngalo yikhona kokuthi sikhangele lapho abathengisa emigwaqweni emadolobheni. Sizwile ukuthi ke edolobheni leHarare ukansili ithi abantu laba ungazani bagcwele indawo yonke, bese buya ledala leparlamente lalo litsho njalo ukuthi abantu laba kungangcono besuswe. Kodwa ke bakhona abalokhe bethela izikhonkwane besithi hayi, ukuthi besuswe abantu laba kungeke kwenzakale ngoba umnotho welizwe kungani ke ugxile endaweni ezingasizo. Xa sisikhangela ke blessing emadolobheni lawa, abantu abaningi abasebenzi, abantu abaningi singathi sebethengisa konke nje khona kwabakutholayo. So ke sifuna ukuzwa ngani ukuthi kambe lina lithini ngodaba lolu. Nxa lifuna ukuthi lingena ngathi sikuhlelo nasi inombolo 001-202-619-2077. Yenza iphindi inombolo ukwenza ukuthi lisifonele kanye, salifona khona ngapho ke ePlumtree, khona ngapho ke eMount Darwin, khona ngapho ke eMtare, singakhohlwa lina phela eMaswingo, khona ngapho ke ngikhuluma ngePangolini phela lapha likhona khona phela lokutshini. Kuzobuya eMakokoba phela lingasikhohlwa lakhona ngapho edulibadzimu ndanda azingenani kuhlelo ye asikhulumeni sizwe.
I think we have our first two guests lined up. Gibbs, first we have economist from the Labour and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe, Mr. Prosper Chitambara, who is the chief economist there. Mr. Chitambara, good evening.
Good evening, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Gibbs, who is our second guest.
Our second guest is Mr. Edward Manning, who is the vice president of the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economies Association. He's based in Bulawayo.
Mr. Manning, good evening.
Good evening, Gift. How are you that end in Washington?
No, we are
Very
doing
fine.
great, and thank you so much. How is the city of kings and queens?
Well, it could be better if we get our marbles right. But unfortunately, the city of Kings is now the dying city because it was the hub of Zimbabwe's economy. But now, when we go to the industrial areas, we just find churches and we visit those places on Saturdays and Sundays. In the meantime, from Mondays to Saturdays, we are on the streets here, on the verandas, corner to corner.
Wow. That summarizes it all, I guess. Maybe let's start formally with Mr. Chitambara Gibbs.
Mr. Chitambara, we see that there are a lot of vendors in cities and towns, and the government is not taking all that kind of action, or even the local authorities. They are failing to control this. What do you think is going on?
I think what is going on is that this problem is really reflecting what has happened to our economy, the state of our economy. Our economy has undergone wrenching changes over the past 3 decades. We have witnessed the deindustrialization of the formal economy, the destruction of the formal economy, and we have also witnessed the preponderance of informalization. So people that have lost jobs or that are failing to find jobs in the formal are actually making out a living or subsisting in the informal economy. And the informal economy it's highly heterogeneous. It's very disorganized and it's very, very difficult to regulate. To regulate. So I think that's the problem that we have. But really, it's a reflection of the state of the economy because normally informalization is a barometer of the strength of the economy. So the higher the levels of normalization, normally the weaker the economy. So I think it's really it's a sad development, and dealing with that obviously requires a holistic and comprehensive strategy. It's not just about removing these people, but it's also more importantly about ensuring that these people have access to a decent job. I think the idea really is to do with the underemployment that is prevailing in the economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chitambara. Mr. Manning, if you can elaborate, I know you touched on this a bit. How is the situation like in Bulawayo?
The situation is tense. The government, the city council is sitting on a time bomb. And we, the chair, approached the city council. We held a workshop with the mayor where we highlighted the situation on the ground. That it's the only way. We need to trade where we are trading in compliance with the new constitution. There are no jobs for starters. And as how I look at it, I don't see us having any jobs from now until after the elections, the new elections in 2018. Because I don't think the government has a plan to sort out this situation. So the mayor has granted us, he says, okay, people can carry on, but we must work in harmony with the shops, etc. So what we're trying to do, where it will be a win-win situation, where council, if they agree, they'll take $1 a day from each vendor. With these 1,000 people on the streets, imagine how much revenue they would have collected. These same people here on the streets are paying the city council rates, they are paying rent, they are paying school fees for the children, they are paying for Imperial, we are paying lights, we are paying water. I think it's the only way. Because if they do not accept what we are saying, you can rest assured an idle brain is the workshop. These very same people which you chase in the street, they'll be marking them in the evening. And what will happen? The crime rate will rise. At the present moment, many of our daughters and sisters and cousins are walking the streets right now outside my flat here, selling their bodies because there are no jobs. We got to get the youth, particularly the youth, we got to get them employed. And one way of employing them in this bad situation is rather to get them occupied in the daytime so that they can go home and do something with the little cash they are getting. I know they're not getting much, but at least they will be active.
Regai tiuye kwamuri vachitambara vamaningi vataura nyaya yakakosha yekuti vanhu ava kanzi vabhadhare dhora rimwe chete kukanzuru zvinogona kubatsira. Vachina masa vakataurawo mazuva apera emuparamende kuti vari kuda kuti vanhu ava vanga vachibhadhariswa mutero. Hurumende ingazvigadzirise sei nyaya inenge iri kunetsa nekuti vanhu ava vanenge vasina kunyoreswa kapasi?
Handina kuzonyatsawo ndikakutanga ndazvinzwa kwepedzisira. I think nyika dzakati wandedza chekutangisira chine chida kuzivikanwa kunzi vanhu ava vanga vachirejistwa nekuti zambiso zvakambotaura vanhu vari kuita zvinhu zvakanyanya kusiyana ende maauthorities haana marecords anoratidza kuti chii chavari kuita. Ndo chekutangisira saka panoda nyaya yeregistration. Chechipiri panoda nyaya yesupport, even yatingati regulatory support, dzimwe support dzakasiyana siyana in terms of even mabylaws among ma-institutional sectors anosupporta because sector iyoyi inoinvolva kuti ma-SMEs. Saka isector ine potential yakakurisisa not just kunyaya dzematax but even kunyaya dzekuemploya vanhu. Even makaona nyika dzakaita sana Israel, ma-small to medium enterprises ari kucontributors ma-40% ye-GDP. Saka isector ine potential but inoda kuregulata zvakanaka uye inoda kusupportwa nema-regulations ari supportive uye nemamwe ma-institutional sectors zvakaita se-technical support, zvakaita se-even financial assistance kuitira kuti iwe a-win-win situation. Kwete kuti hurumende yongota kutaxai but pasina support yavari kuvapawo in terms of ma-regulations, in terms of finance, in terms of technical capacity nezvimwe zvakadaro. Saka pane potential yekuti tinogona kuita leverage sector ye-informal sector iyi nekuti gwaro rakabudikidzwa nezimstat masvondo apfuura riri kuratidza kuti 94% yeeconomy yedu yainformalize. Zvireva kuti hurumende iri kukwanisa kungowana ma-revenues from about 6% inowe ndo formal economy. Saka pane mukana wekuti tinogona kunge tichitap into informalization ndokunge taparura urongwa hunogona kuita kuti vanhu ava vanga vaine ma-incentives ekuformalize mabhizimusi avo uye kwanisa kunge vachicontributa kunyaya dzematax.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chitambara. Please do stay on the line. Like what Mr. Chitambara is saying, statistics recently released by the government or Zimstat actually show that 94% of Zimbabwe's economy is now in what is called the informal sector. Only 6% is in the formal sector, which means that this is not a problem but an opportunity for the economy to actually grow. That is if the government is able to come up with policies that can make it possible to at least formalize this economy.
Mr. Manning, as you are the drivers of the economy, do you think that you are getting a fair deal from the government and all other stakeholders?
Well, I wouldn't say we are getting a fair deal from the government because we don't really meet them one-on-one. Though we had a meeting with the senators and the MPs 2 weeks ago, where we highlighted the challenges faced in the informal sector. And they promised us if we wrote to them, they would do something about it. But when we hear these parliamentary debates, we find it's not working out. So we are now working with the City Council one-on-one and say, okay, in this best situation, how can we do something better? You know, charity begins at home. If you go to Johannesburg, and I travel to Johannesburg every month, the Zimbabweans which are trading on the streets there, the number, I'm even surprised. How many people greet me and say, yes, comrade, comrade, you know. They are doing it in South Africa. It's maybe about, in Joburg alone, there must be 1 million vendors. How many of those people on the streets come from here, from Ligazi, from Makokoba, or from Tolocho, or from Samti? Huh? So I think the government should practice what they preach. They wrote the Constitution, right? And in the Constitution, it highlights certain things like people should work where they are working, and these are our rights. There are no jobs. We in Chia are just trying to help government, but we are worried that government really appreciate the effort we are trying to do. And do they appreciate what we're doing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Manning, and stay on the line. I think we're joined by the third guest that we've been looking for. Yeah, that is Mr. Thabang Nare. Mr. Thabang Nare is a social commentator and he works with some vendors groups. Mr. Nare, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Gibbs, and good evening to the listeners.
Thank you very much. Sithange sintu vele usanda ukungena khonapho. Ungathi ke ngodaba lolu lwabantu abathengisa ezitaladini. Kambe nxa usukhangele kuhlupha kanganani emadolobheni lapha?
Udaba lolu luhambelana lo mumo welizwe, luhambelana lokuthi i-economy yethu ithwele kanzima, akula muntu obuya le mali evela kwamanye amazwe. Lamazimbabwe naku-diaspora layo athikaza ukuthi efake imali yawo ukuthi ama-industry eZimbabwe esebenze. Ngakho-ke abantu abalamisebenzi ekutheleni kwabo imisebenzi sebengene ezitaladeni zemadolobheni ukuthi bethengise okuncane abangakuthengisa, whether ngama-vegetables or bathengise impahla abangakuthengisa, ukuthi at least umuntu nxa ilanga litshona ehambe ngekhaya ethwele okuyimadlanyana angathenga ngakho isinkwa lochago.
Kodwa kuzaphela ngani kambe abantu bonke bangavele lokho bethengisa khonapho akusize kuhluphe khonokho?
Into ekhona nje ukuthi uMinister of Finance utshilo eVictoria Falls, I think kulamagcika amabili edlule, ukuthi i-informal sector kukhula kwayo kuyi-symptom yokuthi i-economy kayikho kahle. So as long as the economy ingekho kahle, sizaba the problem yokuthi i-informal sector ama-vendors abe lokhu esanda. Kodwa thina nje siyakhuthaza ukuthi laba abakhokhela ama-vendors, abasebenza lama-vendors, abakhulumisane nama-city council bebone indlela yokuthi abantu bengathengisela ezindaweni ezingaphambuli umthetho, kodwa kumele abantu bethole indawo zokuthengisa lapho abangaphila khona. Ngapha sisalungisisa i-economy yelizwe. Kuqakathekile ukuthi uhulumende ephangise ukuthi enze izinto, ama-policies etshintsho kuthintwayo ukwenza ukuthi ama-investors engene masinyane elizweni. Xa singasolvanga iproblem ye-economy vele abantu bazabe bedubeka. Singaze sibathole ezitretini bazaphenduka futhi.
Yes, I was a cool babanare. So what you are saying is, the kind of situation that is prevailing in Zimbabwe is a reflection of the poor state of the economy. So he says there are not jobs, so people should actually try to, maybe the vendors leaders, try to talk to council officials so that they can operate in designated places.
For those of you who are just joining us tonight on Studio 7, we are talking about vending. Is it a problem or an opportunity for the government? Of course, many might complain that it's a crisis, vendors are a menace, but some economists like Mr. Chitambara is saying, the government can actually benefit from the vendors, because I think this is the reality that Zimbabwe must now accept.
Definitely.
Yeah, and policies must actually be implemented by government that can try to make sure that it at least leverages something from this informal economy. Regatiende kumterero de kutanga mukoma Howard makadi. Aiwa isu tiripo muri kuona sei nyaya iri mudariro.
Hazina mashoko akawanda kutaura blessing. The whole thing is just total mess. Just total mess. There's nothing that you can't much muchatombofamba zvikana. Kuda kufamba, you can't imagine your town there taifamba tichitombo window shopping, there's nothing like that now. There's no way to step to put your foot on. It is made life so difficult. Kunyanya kana uchichera motokari, where you have no way to park your car. That has made life so difficult in Harare, especially Harare. I think it's very so.
So what should be done?
Well, I don't know. But the situation in the whole country, I don't know what should be done. I cannot say anything.
Aiwa, thank you so much, Ngoma Howard.
All right, thank you.
Aiwa, tinotenda shukuru. Of course, we also have messages on WhatsApp, Gibbs. We have Farai Manyere, Arguti, Dai Urumende, ZANU-PF yabvisa, Mbibitoga hwayo, wekutora 51%. Uye, Dai yadzorera, vanhu vane ruzivo, nekushandisa maprazi vanogona kurima. Ndinoda kuti mabasa angawande zvekuti zvekutengesera mumigwagwa zvinopera sokuti mabasa anenge owanikwa. Then Dube writes, it's been hectic. I'm employed by NRZ, National Railways of Zimbabwe, but things have not been rosy for the past 12 months. We have had no salary. As it is, I'm struggling to make ends meet. Please, can you discuss NRZ issue? I feel it's a national disaster. I think that's a challenge. I think we should address that. And then we have Joseph Chiturumana in Chipinge, who writes, it's hard to tell the truth. I can't really explain everything. It's difficult in this country. Gulliver says vending in urban centers has reached alarming levels. Councils should be taken to task to rectify the situation because they need votes in 2018. They will not do anything. Ishmael says the country will be always poor if we don't allow the whites to come in. Let's just forget about the history. It was then, now is now, and we have to look to the future. Just look at South Africa. It's way developed just because of whites. And if we allow whites, many of the industries will be open. Let's just do what is best for us. Gamba says, very tough life about to go where xenophobia is taking place. No alternative. I presume that is South Africa.
Yes. Now let's come back to you, Mr. Chitambara. Let's talk about policies maybe that can be crafted by government in order to enhance, the operation needs of vendors. What can be done so that all stakeholders can benefit?
I think there are many things that need to be done. For example, the issue of creating conducive, ideal places for these guys to really operate from. I think we need to create infrastructure that is suited and customized for these guys, and also places even where it's convenient for them to do business. Because the other thing is that they are trying to come after clients or to come where the clients are in the city centers. So I think first and foremost what needs to be done is to make sure that we create enabling infrastructure base for these guys to be able to actually do their business from. Then we also need to create supportive regulatory infrastructure. Because when you look at some of our bylaws, they are actually anti-SMEs to a very, very great extent, because these are bylaws that were probably designed, most of them actually were designed during the colonial period. So I think we need to look at, number one, the physical infrastructure aspect, and also, number two, the legal and institutional infrastructure. But again, also, this whole thing is also symptomatic of, you know, like when you take, for example, most of our cities, we haven't really decentralized development to smaller towns, to smaller areas, even to the rural areas. So I think it's also an onus on the central government to also invest in smaller towns, to invest in other areas, new towns, create new towns, so that people don't just come, or the people don't just come to Harare or to Bulawayo or to Mtaro or to Gweru, but we actually create other economic centers in smaller towns based on the availability of natural resources, and then we exploit economic activities across the value chain. For example, when you take areas like Chiadzwa or areas where there are minerals, we try across the mineral value chain in those areas. So I think it's a challenge for us to change our development model towards economic decentralization.
Thank you so much. Tine mumwe mutereri mukoma Pikenzi makadii kuzaka uko?
Kuno kuzaka kunosimba chaizo, makadii zvenye kuonera kuAmerica komuriwa.
Aiwa, tiri ngodaro zvemutohwa kumwe wakaoma kumwe munyoro. Iro dambudziko rekutengesa mugwagwa ririko here kuzaka kana kuti muri kutoridzirwawo kuHarare nekubulawayo?
Hapana kuzvisiri zvinhu zvomuri kutaura izvi. Nzira dzevana veZimbabwe, nyika yeZimbabwe ine vana vakazarwa vasingadi kuita zvemvunga mupopoto. Vanozama nepavanogona napo kuti dai vakwanisa kuita zvinoita kuti vararame pasina kudzvinyira umwe, pasina kudii. Zvisinei nezvakawanda wanda zviri kuitika izvi, vanhu veZimbabwe vari kungozama zvavo. It is a blessed message, let me say so. Because ukatarira zvavari kuzama kuita havanei nezvakawanda, vari kungotsvaga kuti dai vakwanisa kurarama pasina hondo, pasina zvakaipa zvavangakwanisa kunge vachiita.
Tichitarisawo vamwe vari kugunun'una kuti muHarare vanenge vati wandisei, semaonero enyu pangaitwe sei? Matiwo yenyu idambudziko.
Kana iri nyaya yekuwandisa, hapana zvingakwanisa kuti zviitike zvakanyanya-nyanya, kusiyao kuti ivo vanhu vacho pachavo mukavapa mukana vanokwanisa kuzoorganiza pachavo, zvokuti zvavanotaura zvokuti hai ngavadzingiriwe. Muchaona kuti kushaikwa kwamabasa kurimo muZimbabwe kunobva kwawedzera zvakawanda. Muchaona ma-evil things
mukoma Pickens, imbobata yenyu, nhare yenyu. Tiri kudzoka futi kwamuri timbotora kabreak. Mr. Nare and also Mr. Manning and Mr. Chitambara, please do stay on the line for our radio listeners. We are streaming live, so go to www.voazimbabwe.com and press on LiveTalk. This is Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Kip Stube saying stay tuned.
For those of you who are just joining us, good evening, and this is Studio 7 Live Talk. And tonight on Studio 7 Live Talk, we are talking about vending. Is it a problem or an opportunity for the government of Zimbabwe? Of course, a recent study carried out by a World Bank linked group estimated that vendors in Zimbabwe are numbering about $5.7 million. Let me take this again. Are numbering about 5.7 million. These are just the vendors. That's the estimated number, and they estimate that there's about $7 billion that is circulating in the informal sector. And of course, Zimstat is also saying that 94% of Zimbabwe's economy is now in the so-called informal sector. Gibbs.
And our guest tonight, Mr. Tabagnare, who is a social commentator and he works with vendors groups. We also have Mr. Edward Manning, who is the Vice President of the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economies Association. And then last but not least, we've got Mr. Prosper Chitambara, who is an economist. If you wish to join the show right now, phone us directly at this number, 001-202-619-2077, and we'll call you back. That number again, 1-202-619-2077. Before we took a break, I think we had a caller.
Rega tingopedza namukoma Pekenzi vari kuzaka rinopisa uko. Tipeo manga muchitsanangura kuti pangagadziriswe sei. Taurai zvenyu pedzisai.
And because this is an opportunity for the people of Zimbabwe. They are trying to earn their living. In a way, it is more polite. In a way, because this is a download. Just imagine those vast numbers. The Zimbabwe moved away from the informal sector. So, one of our individuals anyhow.
Aiwa, tinotenda zvikuru mukoma Pickens nekupinda muchirongwa chedu.
Okay, thank you so much.
Tinotenda zvikuru. Of course, what Pickens is saying is that this might be challenging for the government to try and address because it's actually a reflection of the state of the economy. Gibbs.
Before Mr. The guy that we're talking to
Pickens,
went off air, I was thinking of Zaka. You know some insects called aroro?
Oh, yes.
Have you eaten those?
Not really.
Yeah, they really look good. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw a family that was eating those, at one stage. My friend, Raymond Tikinye, I've told you about this long name, right?
Yeah.
Mozambique, Matikinye. So it took me to a village where they were eating these insects.
Interesting.
And they were very interesting. So now we've got some people, listeners, who are sending messages on Facebook. And one of the messages is from Foster Mbanga, who says, that is very, very true that vendors are all over the place. Then we've got Mukwena Daniels, who says, the government must lure investors to come and open businesses and so that Zimbabweans may get formal employment. Then we've got Nyati Moketse Wilson, who says, my view is that they must continue selling so that they can put bread on their table. Then we've got Marshall Nyamande, who writes, there are no industries, so that's the reason why many people are in the streets. And then we've got Josie Tole, who says, oh my goodness, the ZANU-PF government has actually destroyed almost everything. 80% of the people in Zimbabwe are unemployed. So then there are so many of these messages. We'll read them as we continue. So let's get back to Mr. Manning. Mr. Manning, since everyone is selling anything on the streets of Bulawayo and other places, how do you trade, under such an environment?
Well, we are doing it by hook or by crook. But what I want to state is this. From our organization, we've identified areas where informal traders can go in. Take, for example, in Cowdrey Park. The shops are very few. They should create tuck shops. All right. The bylaws should be scrapped. In fact, I call them Jurassic Park bylaws, and they should be placed in the museum. We should have people-driven bylaws. Because, take for example, in Cowdrey Park, how many people are running shebeens there? Huh? Why not legalize them? Last year, I went to Polokwane in South Africa. I stayed in a lodge in the location. All right. Why not give people licenses to run these lodges? And, you know, in Polokwane, I was right in the location. In the morning, I woke up, they offered me breakfast at a cost. The rental was 35 rands a night without breakfast. You know, we are not, we have no idea of how to create jobs. Why arrest people? Only the thought behind government and local authority, arrest. But there's so many ways where people can find employment. There's all these empty buildings in the CBD. Why not give people a space to run those buildings? Put people to repair watches, to repair shoes, to become tailors, repair cell phones, etc. Huh? But, you know, we still, those bylaws, they're hindering progress here, in all over, you know, in Harare. You find so many empty spaces. Why not give people an opportunity to do something there whilst they're trying to overcome this problem of mass unemployment? That is my point. There's even, like in Pumula South, it's alleged that there's this council farm at Nguza there. They are saying there's coal. Why not open up a mine there and employ people? You know, to tell you the honest truth, if Jesus Christ comes here, we are a typical example of that gentleman who was given 2 talents. And he dug a hole and he put them inside and closed them and he's waiting for the steward to come and he will present the $2. But yeah, we are fortunate. God has given us so much. You see, we can do it. But I think somewhere a gentleman said we got no place to park our cars. Are cars more important than people? Surely we can't talk in this age about cars. What about people? People first, cars second. But you find in Gloria here, there's space for how many cars? Thousands of cars. But for people, the cars is, the people space is limited. Huh? It's not fair. We never created this unemployment. It's government. They must get their act together. In the meantime, people will survive on these things. And I want to say here in Gloria, we are not taking over the pavement. We are only taking partly. On the veranda side, where there's displays, we are saying to people, no, don't be on this side. Be on the side next to where the cars park. And leave enough space for people to come out of cars and get onto the veranda.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. We'll come back to you. Yes, we'll come back to you. There's a caller that is itching to say something, but we actually heard exactly what you're talking about. So at the end of the day, he says in Bulawayo, you know, they've opened some space for people to park, and government must get this act together. So who's the caller there?
We have Gift Tserere in the UK. Good evening, Gift.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm doing great. And of course, Gift tonight, we are talking about this issue of vending in the streets of Harare, Bulawayo, all the major cities actually, and even smaller towns. We even had someone from rural Zaka saying it's the same problem everywhere.
Yes.
Is it a problem or it's also an opportunity for the government? Is this not the reality that Zimbabwe must now accept and embrace? And how best can the government benefit from this?
Actually, I think this is a two-pronged. It's two-pronged because on one end we have got the people who are unemployed, who are in the streets. They are trying to get a formal employment for themselves, which the government has failed to provide. And these people, they've got low incomes for them to secure a decent living. And on the other side, we have got those who are employed, who are formally employed, but they are living on low incomes as well. Say average of $250 to $300 a month, which is far way below the cost of living in Zimbabwe. Now the government is trying to remove those vendors from the streets because, it's inhabitable for the CBD to have so much vendors in the streets. Yes, we agree to that. But it's not just a question of removing vendors from the streets. It's a question of having mechanisms to secure decent lives for those people who have low incomes, who are not employed, because they've got a constitutional right to living. They've got a constitutional right to life, which needs to be secured by the government through the provision of social service for those who don't have adequate incomes. So as we talk today, we should embrace in our minds that we need to create employment, but how do we create employment? Our economic systems should be pro-business in Zimbabwe so that we attract their foreign direct investment, which is a problem at the moment. We're in isolation. We don't have any foreign direct investment that is coming into our country. And the only domestic companies that we have in Zimbabwe, they are closing down, which is putting people at risk of not having a decent life, but instead they are going into poverty. So the alternative any individual in Zimbabwe, any citizen in Zimbabwe has at the moment is getting into the streets to secure a living for himself or for the children and for their mothers and fathers who are in the rural areas. So it's a government problem and it's a country's problem that there is no order in our country at the moment. But at the same time, there's also a question of income distribution. Of course, Zimbabwe, we are saying today we have low incomes for those who are employed, like the civil servants, they are earning low incomes, and those who are not employed, they have no other source of income because the government is not providing. At the same time, demanding taxes, demanding the raise, the raise in rents. But at the same time, there are some people who are in the top, like the cabinet ministers. Recently, there was an article about a cabinet minister who is building a 50-bedroom mansion house, against someone who is not able to get a loaf of bread. And the question of the bakeries in Zimbabwe telling you that the number of loaves sold per day have dropped to 800 loaves per day. It shows you that only 800 people in Zimbabwe can afford a loaf of bread per day. That means 800 people in Zimbabwe are living on $1 per day. The rest, 12 million, they are living on less than $1 per day, which is a problem in our economy. So the government has to do something. They should not just call out the vendors to get out of the streets because they are creating mess. Or they're trying to create a way for the form of business. They should have mechanisms to secure decent living for those people who are removed from the streets. Yes, you remove them, but what kind of employment are you going to give them? This is a state that is collecting taxes from the people. You should be able to provide the basics and the basic needs for the poor and the unemployed.
Gift, thank you so much for your contribution.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Great stuff there from Gift.
Indeed.
So yes, sibuyele kubabunare usakhona encingweni babunare.
Ngikhona baba Dubekile.
Ngokhangele okwenzakala kuZulu mihla lemihla. Xa ukuthi nje uvuke kuseni uyabona into zihamba njani. Asikhangeleke khonapho ke kulabo abathengisayo. Kambe impilo yabo ebuyayo injani? Ingabe ikhanya kuzalunga kumbe kuzabhidlika lokho?
Impilo ikhanya isiba nzima ngamandla kuzizukulwane nje zaseZimbabwe. Nxa sinanzelela enyangeni edlule kube lento leyi izinophobia lapha eGoli. Ukuthi nxa umuntu kade found uzatshaya indawo lapho engeni lapha eGoli edinga imisebenzi, amathuba lawo ngasekho. Whether kade ucross passport siyadinga ama-permits, lokho akusekho, So i-challenge ekhona yiyo yona leyo-ke ukuthi nxa umuntu eseZimbabwe uzenzayo. Njengasihamba ngomgwaqo uPlumtree Road namhlanje emini, ngathi ngisedlula lapha eDunlop abantu babetshayisa ngama-4 past 4 babetshayisa abantu emelini babetshayise abantu e-PG indawo zonke zona lezena kuphela abantu abatshayisa bevele emsebenzini so imisebenzi ayikho abantu ngeke baphuma besiya kwezinye indawo kwamanye amazwe besiyadinga imisebenzi ngakho-ke uhulumende kumele nanzelele i-agency ukuthi kusuku i-agency yokuthi kakutholakale indlela zokusolova ama-problem kodwa ngisho njalo ukuthi siyakunanzelela ukuthi amadolobho alawo amandla wokuzama ukuthi isolove ama-problem kudolobho ngedolobho kodwa nxa silanzelela kuthiwa kulento okuthiwa i-local economic development ukuthi ibulawayo kumele ibe le-local economic development policy yayo iharare ibe le-local economic development policy zonke izigaba nje ukuthi umkhonomi kolokobulawayo singenza njani sibese sikhangela lokhu esinakho njengobulawayo izindawo sibese sisho indawo leyi sesiyigabela ukuthi ama-vendors ithengise indawo leyi sesenza ukuthi abantu bethola ama-stand zona leziyana izinto ziyenza ukuthi imali ibe ibhoda ebantwini ngiyazi ukuthi abantu abaningi abaku-diaspora abafisa ukuthi bethole i-stand and kuba yinto enzima utshela isihlobo sakho ukuthi hambe endilayinele ekhansili zonke izinto leziyana ezinye kumele zisetshenzwe even nge-internet ukuthi umuntu esengilandi ezoyenza isizukulwane esezimbabwe kule ID yakhe kumele apply ethole ilendi so izi zinto ezinyenza at the local level ukuthi imali ibe khona so uhulumende kumele esebenze ngamandla ukuthi i-economy itshintshe impilo zabantu bezimbabwe ziguquke zibe ngcono
Siyakuzwa kakhulu-ke Baba Nare ubambe khonapho ngayikhatshana. So what Mr. Nare was saying is that life is becoming tough for most Zimbabweans. He reminded us of the xenophobic attacks in South Africa where about 7 people died recently. And he says for Zimbabweans there's no longer any double up. You go to South Africa, there are no jobs. Come back to Zimbabwe, there are no jobs. So people are in a serious bind. So he says government should think seriously about what to do next. There's agency, according to him, for the government to act. And he says most probably one of the solutions to this kind of crisis is for local authorities to draft what he calls local economic development policies. Sort of like you create something that is micro-managed so that people can create local employment and other things.
Let's bring in Mr. Chitambara. Mr. Chitambara, you're still on the line?
Yeah, I'm still on the line.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Chitambara, there was a promise by the government to create 2 million jobs under Zim Asset. What has happened to that?
Nothing has really come out of it. In fact, the economy has actually been losing jobs as the industrialization has continued unabated, and obviously that has also resulted in the informalization of the economy. What we've actually seen over since the electoral victory of ZANU-PF is more and more companies have been closing down. The economic situation has not been getting better, but it's really been getting worse, and that has affected confidence in the economy. We haven't seen any notable foreign direct investors actually coming into the country, and we also haven't witnessed any significant or meaningful investments by local investors. Actually, local investors have been divesting, as seen by the increase in deindustrialization. So I think this is also an indictment on economic empowerment initiatives by the ruling ZANU government that they have not really succeeded in empowering many people. Actually, they've only empowered probably a few people as more and more people continue to suffer. And I also tend to agree with the gentleman who was talking about the issue of the lack of social safety nets. When you look at countries like South Africa and even other developed countries, they actually provide what we call unemployment benefits to people that may be unemployed. So I think that also helps to mitigate the impact of unemployment. But of course, that's not happening not just in Zimbabwe, but in also a number of African economies. Of course, in South Africa it's happening, but we don't have that. And I should also add to say that decent work is a right. I think it's even enshrined not just within our constitution, but also within international conventions. So it's a right that's supposed to be guaranteed by government for every citizen of the country. So every person that wants a job should actually be able to get not just any job, but get a decent job.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chitambara Gibbs.
Before we go to Mr. Manning, I think we've got some more messages on Facebook. I think there are so many messages, blessing, that are trickling in. And one of them is from Gilbert Karikai Veya, who says, holding on to power when you can't do anything is not going to help the people of Zimbabwe. The government should resign en masse and let the young people rebuild the country. Then I've got a long kind of message from Nicholas Kajengo. I'll just read maybe the first 3 paragraphs. So he says, thank you so much, VOA, for introducing this topic tonight for discussion. The Zimbabwean cities, in particular Harare, Bulawayo, Kweru, Mutare, only to mention a few, are really now a vendor's jungle. And this says informal trading or vending in most cases is caused by poor working conditions that include inconsistent payment of wages that fall well below the poverty datum line and salary cuts. Then we've got another message from Sakile Ne, who says, kunzima kakhulu ukuthi abantu behambe kubulawe nxa besezitaradini akusahambeki kodwa ke imisebenzi ayikho abantu pho bangenzani kulohlupho sibili kakhulu lapha. So coming to you, Mr. Manning, so we ask you to be very brief on this point. So what is the way forward here? How best can you actually benefit from what the council is actually giving you? In terms of those small stands that you've been given, are you even paying any money in terms of taxes? Can you be as brief as possible? Thank you.
Yes, the stands cost $14 per month. Out of that $14, 15% goes to government as a form of tax each month. So for the government to say that the informal sector do not pay tax in the base, those who are legal vendors, all legal vendors pay tax. But what I need to say to you concerning the 2 million jobs, I think there was a slight misquotation there. It was 2 million informal jobs on the street. I never saw them ever creating jobs in commerce and industry. They will never. They've run out of ideas as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manning. I think Nicholas is actually phone.
Yeah,
I think maybe he's saying we did some injustice to his kind of, missive. Mr. Nicholas, how are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing very fine.
Yes, where are you?
I'm in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, okay. Can you just walk a little bit so that we can hear you? We can't hear you at the moment.
Okay.
Now we can hear you. Yes, continue with whatever you want to tell us.
Okay, thank you very much for the nice topic of this discussion. Yes, the issue of vending is a subject of great controversy.
Oh, you are getting cut off, Mr. Nicholas.
If you can move a bit from where you are, your
phone is getting cut off. Can you hear me now? Oh, Nicholas, I think moved. We know you want to contribute, but unfortunately we can't hear you. Can you hear me? No, we can't hear him. We'll ask our producer to call him again.
Let's hope he was not on top of a mountain and
yeah, let's hope. Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah.
Of course, we still have tombodzoka kana kuti kutombotaura nemi vachitambara sei pari kushaya nzira dzekuti pagadziriswe kuti pangaite sei, nekuti hazvina kuipa kuti vanhu vanga vachitengesa zvinhu tiri kuti upfumi hauna kumira zvakanaka, asi vamwewo vari kutengesa muzvitoro vari kuti zvaakuvakanganisa bhizimisi nekuti vari kutengesa pamberi pezvitoro. Zvimwe zvavari kutengawo zviri kubva kunana China zvinenge zvakachipa kudarika zviri kugadzirwa muZimbabwe. Sei pasina sungawirirano pakati pehurumende nemakanzuru kuti paoneke kuti pangagadzirwe sei, nekuti munhu wese ari kungotaura zvaafunga hanzi mazvake.
I think nyaya yacho dzinenge gona kunge dziri inyaya politics, nekuti tinoziva kuti iwo mavendors vamwe vacho vamwe vacho vanenge vari affiliated kuma-different political organizations. Kana mali panowanzozoitika maclashes kudhonzerana nekuti mapoliticians wanotya kuzonge wachiluza support wakabva waonekwa wachiita mahash judgment or ma-measures on vanhu vanenge vachiita vending wavo. Saka I think nyaya iripo zhinji inenge iri nyaya yepolitics, ndosikamuchiona kuti dzimwe nguva hurumende haikwanisi kutaura even nevoice one uye haikwanisi kuadresa nyaya dzacho in a holistic and in a comprehensive manner, nekuti panenge paine mapolitical undertones nema-overtones anenge achiafecta kuimplementwa kwema-council resolution even ma-government policies nema-regulations anenge achiafecta nyaya idzodzo.
tinotenda zvikuru vachitambara.
I think Nicholas is back again. Mr. Nicholas, we are told you are back again. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Don't move. Stay there. So give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts.
Now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I am saying the issue of informal trading and issue of vendors to get controversy. It's a very fascinating and controversial topic, Actually, before I go any further, blessing, let me make it very clear that the issue of vending in Zimbabwe has been caused by poverty. Yes, I'm saying the current level of poverty in Zimbabwe has its roots in the cumulative effects of the protracted economic decline that the country experienced, especially from the year 2000, which I can say was caused by sanctions. I want to make it very clear there. But why am I saying so? I'm saying so simply because before the sanctions were imposed onto the country in the year 2000, it's very clear that around our GDP that it peaked at $574. In 1998, it shrank to, say, 284 by 2008. You know this very much. And it has also been worsened by hyperinflation, which reached 231 million percent per annum by July 2008. Now, because of these economic hardships, what then happened later? What happened is, unemployment, and for people to earn a living, it was really disastrous. Yeah, of course. Should I add one?
Yes, just one more. We are giving you 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So, also I'm of the view that the issue of vending and informal trading is also as a result of the closure of industries, company closures, retrenchments, and it can also be traced from the period of ISAP. After ISAP after that grouping or policy of ISAP was enacted, a lot of people were retrenched, resulting in increased poverty. However, I'm of the view that in terms of the Zimbabwean Constitution, it is very clear that in Section 14 of our Constitution, subsection 1...
Mr. Nicholas, unfortunately, we don't have time. I think we will have to call you again some other time, and we can continue with our discussion. Of course, we want to thank our guests this evening, Mr. Nare, Mr. Manning, and Mr. Chitambara. We also want to thank our callers, our viewers, those who sent us messages on Facebook and WhatsApp. And of course, we want to thank our team behind the scenes, our engineers and producers. Signing off, this is yours truly, Blessing Zulu.
And I'm Kip Stube saying good night, Zimbabwe.
Welcome to the Voice of America in Creole.
Si toutefois l'État haïtien déjà débloqué.
Justifié 128 millions 780.
On connaît que le 1er juin, c'est pas le début.